Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review Killer Sofa. Don't sit on the furniture.
Written and directed by Bernie Rao, starring Piimio Mei, Nathalie Morris, Jim Baltax, Stacey King, and Jed Brophy. This movie's about Francesca, a girl who's inherited a recliner that's getting a little too comfy in her home. It's seemingly possessed by someone from the 1800s and is committing crimes of passion. So what do we like?
I mean, it's a dead giveaway here. The sofa is...
Well, first of all, it's a recliner.
It looks stunning. This lazy boy is not lazy by any means. I think it looks great. I love everything about it. And when it fully retracts and is standing tall, it reminds me of Domo-kun.
And the way that it's lit is really cool because even though it's just a fucking chair, it's got its little button beady eyes, it's got this one straight mouth where the cushions line up, and it basically doesn't really move its mouth. I mean, it does at some point, but most of the time it's just the way that it's lit gives it different personalities. And just like the context of the situation, you can feel what the chair is thinking. And like, it's hilarious.
But what makes it even more entertaining is the fact that it's established early on that we see the chair moving. Even like little subtleties, it always one-ups itself. It goes from like the cutaway shot to it coming closer to you, eventually to it like turning 90 degrees and then a full-on like running out of the scene, which you can't top it. You really can't.
And we're not gonna give too much away in this review, just a heads up. Like, that's probably the extent of the craziness that we'll give away. The chair moves as you would want it to, and thankfully, because it does take some time before it actually gets going, but it does move. I enjoyed our characters because we have such a wide range. We've got this girl who everyone is obsessed with. I kinda get it, but it is creepy and weird. I can't imagine being literally attractive and attracting all the creeps to my house to sniff my panties or whatever. Well, I don't wear panties, but I mean, you know what I mean.
Little boxer thief.
That'd be fucking gross. She's kind of like a dancer.
The only constant thing in my life is my dancing.
Then we've got the musician in Maddie. She's kind of badass. She's kind of a little edgier. She's the best friend to Francesca. And then Maddie's grandfather owns an antique shop and his name's Jack. And he's kind of just like a weird rabbi guy, but he's also into voodoo, which to me seems like counter to each other. I don't know much about like Jewish religion and stuff, but I don't think voodoo is part of it.
And I did find it hilarious that they used the Dabuk demon, which is very popular in many other like Jewish possession movies. I always chuckle a little when I see like the Dabuk as our demon, and that's what it was in this case.
We've also got the weird detective Gravy. He's very strange. He's one of those guys who's also really, really attracted to Francesca, and you get really strange vibes from him, but he's trying his best despite his urges.
Grapes onto him though.
Considering both the poster and the name, I thought this was gonna be like a garbage tier movie, but it's actually shot extremely well. Like, the production value is super high because not only are the shot types cool and also unique at times, because they use a lot of like different angles, which are very uncommon, but I guess it is a very uncommon theme for a film, so it kind of makes sense. But they also use a lot of atmosphere. There's lots of smoke and haze all over the place. And you couple that with the harsh lighting with the pinks and the blues and sometimes greens. And it just stands out for an indie film.
I really liked how our story wrapped itself up. I don't want to spoil anything or give anything away, but I was a little hesitant in the direction that this film was going to go in. And I found myself at the end of it feeling satisfied. Because there is some concern when you're getting into like demonic possession movies and how wacky things could actually become.
I like that you say like, oh, how wacky things are gonna become. We've got Pee-wee Playhouse fucking chair running around killing people.
You know how possessions go crazy. But this went in a different direction and it left me satisfied.
Satisfied like Francesca hanging out in her little cozy recliner. It was getting it on and she was like finger banging the chair. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, she was like feeling the felt.
And even mentioning like that scene specifically, like the way that they used the lighting there, it's like it got super surreal really quickly without doing necessarily any visual effects or anything. They just turned all the other lights off and had like a harsh red light and just interesting cuts. I don't know, I really like the production value. Now, what didn't we like?
Going back to the story, there are elements I definitely didn't enjoy. I think it has to do with the flashback sequences. I wasn't a big fan of that whole storyline. I get why it existed, and how they presented the occult and the idea of the book, it came off more campy than what was actually happening in this film.
On IMDb, it does say that this is like a horror comedy, but like it isn't really. The concept is funny at first glance, but the movie is shot pretty straight. There's not really any comedic moments. It's very subtle. It's not like way over the top. But when it comes to those flashbacks, it just seems so off. Like it would have been better if they just described that, or even do like an illustration like on pages that you might see in other movies like Leprechaun or something. I think that would have been a better vehicle for this backstory.
And what's funny about it is we get these two flashback sequences and then they summarize it based on the like occult guru master's website. Like they have like the whole backstory on this like browser that they're going through. So you don't even need the flashbacks because you get all your answers in one click.
I do wish we had better kills. There are some kills in this, we're not going to talk about them, but none of them are gory. There's not really any blood in this film. You can see where they were going with the kills and they are kind of cool, but you don't see any of them. So I do think a lot of people will go into this expecting some like a different movie. Thankfully, I did enjoy it for the most part, but there are certain elements that are just inherent to this concept of a recliner that could potentially just like eat somebody and then they don't. And this happens with a lot of films that are based around an inanimate object. Your mind is going to race thinking of cool kills that thing can possibly do. This recliner didn't do those kills that you think.
No, but it was effective at disposing of the bodies.
Yes, that is actually hilarious. Imagine just walking down the street and seeing a fucking recliner just flip a guy off a building.
I also wasn't a fan of the pacing of this film. It's an hour and 20 minutes, but it definitely felt longer. There was like moments where I was bored, but like I enjoyed the film as a whole. Just certain aspects of it, I was just like, oh, why is this in here? In particular, near like the very end, where it just dragged on for another 20 minutes. And I actually probably was only 5, but it felt like 20 minutes.
Yes, I was gonna say the same thing. It's hard to kind of like the footage that I'm showing isn't the end. There's a really quality conclusion, and then they continue off of it to work in some stuff that I didn't really care for in the first place. And I think that a lot of people will think the same way. We are being very vague, I get it, but if you know, you know. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Killer Sofa wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but I was actually impressed. This was a pretty high quality indie film. I love the production value, the lighting, the atmosphere, and just the whole vibe of it. The recliner is absolutely hilarious and adorable and also menacing at the same time, and you have to give them props for the way that they shot this thing and all of the people surrounding the sofa. I thought they were all great, but I do wish that we had at least a couple really over-the-top gory kills, because this is the kind of movie that you would almost expect that from. Like that visual is in your head of getting gobbled up and blood spraying out. And there's basically no blood in this movie. I think you get like a couple splashes here and there, but nothing substantial and nothing worth talking about. And that's unfortunate. Like John, I wasn't a huge fan of the flashback sequences because we got all we needed from the guy on YouTube. At the end of the day, I did enjoy this and I would recommend it, but go in knowing that you're not going to get crazy kills. It's not as wild as you think it's gonna be, but it is a fun time. So I'm gonna give this 3.5 fucking sun hats out of 5.
Full disclaimer, if I could, I would give just the recliner 5 out of 5. I loved how it looked and the fact that it moved. And that alone is worth the watch. But the reality is the pacing of this film is not that strong and it can get boring at times. We have a really good story that has a great conclusion, but they throw all the information in your face that it becomes boring. The flashback sequences are not needed and the last 10 minutes of the film don't need to exist. However, I do like this concept and I thought it was well executed. Even though it's not a rampaging killer sofa, it is something that's different, and I felt like they brought something to the table that we weren't expecting. You want to be surprised. You want those moments that you're not going to see coming, and this film did that. So that being said, I'm going to give this film 2.5 hilarious showdowns out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.